All right. And to get started, we'll start off on the Speco website. As always, specotech.com. And what are Speco's advanced analytics? Specifically facial recognition and facial detection. There's two layers of facial recognition. There's the facial recognition and facial detection. That'll be covered under our advanced analytics. Let's select the advanced analytics tab. And we'll scroll through here briefly. And if anybody hasn't been on this webinar, we'll cover a little bit of website stuff, and then we dive straight into the recorder and start doing demo and actually set up process. So people detection, vehicle detection, recognition. This is what we're speaking of, facial recognition. So it's important to understand that there's two layers of this. There's recognition and then there's detection. So when we're doing recognition, whether that's vehicle or whether that's people facial detection, it's important to note that by doing facial detection, we're just detecting a face. That face is then able to be searched, or we're able to match that or add that face to the database. Once we start adding faces to the database, then that face becomes recognizable, and that's where the recognition comes in. With databases and faces in a database tied to people or groups of people, we're able to start taking that detection and then recognizing those faces that we have in our database. Or we have the ability to be able to designate between a recognizable face or a stranger, which a stranger is anybody that's not in a database. And we'll cover this. We'll cover this shortly once we dive in a little bit more into the actual recorder. But if we select products there, one of the key things were which cameras offer advanced analytics or these functions. And the advanced analytics package is offered in about, I'd say 75–80% of our our Blue Series cameras, ranging anywhere from 2 megapixel, 5 or 8 megapixel cameras, anything from a bullet to a turret to a dome. We also have our white light series cameras that offers full color. I will say that if facial recognition is important to you, I'm highly going to recommend that you steer to one of the white light solutions or one of our low light solutions, or if lighting is not an issue, then stick with one of our turret or domes or bullets. And the reason why is because with facial recognition, it requires a certain image size, which is basically 2 megapixel 1080p of a face to be able to make that a recognizable image. So if we have the ability to, at nighttime or when low light situations, to be able to turn on and it will come on automatically, the white light intensifier, we have the capabilities of being able to do full color even at night. And that is going to increase the accuracy of your facial recognition. And you'll also see here that there's a facial recognition stamp under the camera that we're looking for, so we can ensure that this is a facial recognition camera. But as you'll see, there's a huge line of cameras. Obviously, it's got our NRE series recorder, because our NRE series recorder is what's going to hold the facial recognition advanced analytic that you're looking for. And we had spoken a little bit about some of our low light cameras. This particular one is the flexible intensifier, 4K, 8 megapixel. So it does have the capabilities of being able to do either low light situations with the IR or use no IR because of its super low light lux. Now, something that's unique about our flexible intensifier and our intensifier line is that we do offer it in black too. You'll notice the very sleek look, and also includes the black accessory mounts, which just add to a completely nice and sleek install. So let's back up again. Oops, we're on page 2. So if we go to page 3, it'll follow up with the rest of our flexible intensifier line, also in the black housings as well, included with the black back boxes. So this is going to be our product line that's offered under the facial recognition. Again, that was under solutions, advanced analytics, and facial recognition, product information. So that's how we found that. Now, as we're talking about, before we hop into some live demo stuff, it's important to know that we also have some education for you, to where if this is the first time under the Learning Center, the face detection diagram. So those are best install practices for when you're trying to utilize the face detection AI feature, or you're trying to utilize face recognition. What are the best mounting heights? What kind of angles do we want? You know, we can kind of sum it up and say you want to be, above the door jamb and below the ceiling, and you want to, keep the face. Obviously, if we're trying to do facial recognition or face detection, as you see when we do a live demo a little later on, you'll see that there are different angles we'll get. Some images will be less than 50, 60, 70%. That we have different recognition rates. That is the accuracy of the match to your database image. So the better the image, or the better the angle of the camera that sees a face, the better that your image can be. So it's also important to know, as we go through this demo here, that when we're doing face detection, or especially facial recognition, is, it's going to surprise you when I show you this live demo here, what the angle of descent is. Because, keep in mind that when we're doing these installs, most camera installs, we're going to want to see all the way down a hallway, or we're going to want to see as much as possible. So keep in mind, under solutions, if you want to demo this to a customer without having to set up your own demo, you can come to solutions demo. We go to the face detection demo. This is going to run you through our facial recognition and detection demo. So obviously the detection feature is just like we're seeing, it's detecting faces, but recognition is also turned on. We have a group of employees, as you'll see pass through here, that they pop up on the target detection screen. They're in the database as employees. But what I want you to notice too about the camera angle is that, we don't see down the end of the hallway, but once the individuals come into screen, we have a very close, good proportional face image to the screen here. And you'll notice there, and once somebody comes in that's not in the database, they're going to pop up here, and utilizing the pop-up screen notification, we're able to see that a stranger has entered into the area there. So some real life application to this would be, whether that's a school system, a church, somebody that's blacklisted, somebody that's been fired, or somebody that started a fight before, somebody that stole from a restaurant or a location. We're able to take these individuals' faces from the recordings and add them to our databases to be notified later on. And the interaction that can happen once we see these individuals there is things like our outputs can be triggered on the recorder that trigger the access control, to do a soft lockdown, hard lockdown to certain sides of the building. They can trigger the alarm system. They can trigger automated messages. What we can do with this really opens up just a realm of opportunities for you, and whatever the use case is. It's just important to work with one of your Speco representatives to be able to kind of iron out what is your situation, what are you trying to accomplish, and then we lay out a plan to see that through fruition. So this is an easy way for you to demo facial recognition and detection to customers. Now, we can do facial recognition from cameras, as we showed you the facial recognition camera. We also have this product here that I'm a big fan of, which is the O2 TML. It is an 8-inch temperature reading panel with face and mask recognition. So this thing, it does have to be powered by 12 volts, but it's running Speco protocol. And you can run this into your NRE series recorder and utilize, you can turn off the mask recognition, you can turn off the temperature recognition if you want, but it does run the facial recognition in correlates or correlation with the N-series recorder. And it also has two-way audio built into it. There's a Wiegand input output, 2 alarm outputs, as well as a door lock module. So, this is a pretty unique way here to be able to, whether this is indoor, outdoor rated. We've been doing a lot of engineering with them on gates, on if you have a small camera job, whether that's, whether it doesn't matter how many cameras, but if they want to utilize facial recognition to give access, or you could have an iPad running, or at the recorder, somebody can have these pop-up videos. If a stranger enters, okay, then we can talk to that stranger through a two-way audio, grant them permission or deny them permission into the door. So, another product here that we offer, there are multiple stands for these as well too, for different mounting options. So this is going to give you more of you have to be within 6 to 8 inches for it to read, to where one of your IP cameras has the capabilities of detecting faces, at a farther range. We do have the capabilities of doing two things. One, doing an installation that matches more of the face detection, that's more directly in front of the door, or changing the detection area in the recorder, which we're about to hop into now. All right, so let's see which the best way to do this. I'm going to utilize the Speco dashboard to get into a recorder here. And so why this is important is, if this is a real life scenario, a customer calls me, they want the facial recognition turned on. And I say, okay, great. Usually I have to roll a truck out, send somebody out, program that, or dig up IP information to get into that recorder. By utilizing my dashboard, I come just log in. Let's say the site that I want to go to is going to be Herbal Care Plus in Bristol. So I'm going to select that site. For those that aren't familiar with the dashboard, the green check mark tells me everything's good. Firmware is up to date. Recorder's online. If I'm running healthcare checks on my cameras, that means everything's great. For this use case, I'm going to connect to that device by utilizing the connect.specotech.cloud portal. For those that aren't familiar with the connect.specotech.cloud, you can type that into your browser, connect.specotech.cloud, and enter in, we'll just do that right here for you. And we can enter in the QR code of any NRE or in-series recorder, followed by the username password, hit login, and it's going to take us to the same screen here where we're accessing that recorder. But through the dashboard, once I get that device in my dashboard, I don't need to remember that username, password, or QR code anymore because it's hard coded into the dashboard. So by seeing this site here, so we have full access into the recorder from the dashboard. First, we'll come in and say, okay, this customer wanted to be able to set up facial recognition. So I'm going to go under settings, AI and event, because all of the analytics fall under the AI and event tab. You can select AI and event, or we can hit facial recognition. We'll go ahead and hit facial recognition. And we'll select the camera that we want to work with. So a few things to keep in mind, how we discussed, if we're using facial recognition on a camera, there's certain areas that I don't. So if we discuss this door, for it's a glass door, we can see through. If this is my detection area, there's something I got to keep in mind is that when somebody comes around this area through the glass, my detection area is going to be a little bit farther back. So things like that, environmental factors are going to, decrease the accuracy of my reads, especially if it's getting dark, if it's raining, if there's any more environmental factors introduced to the scene. So for this instance, I'm going to take the lobby entrance camera because I know the layout a little better, and I know this is a better camera for me to be able to, because this here is tinted, and I know when somebody opens this door, they're going to be full frame, where this is a great image for me to be able to get a face. And you'll notice that I've actually cut off the top of the door so that when people walk through, they're entering into the frame. I think about 7.5 to 10 feet is probably the range from the face to that camera, which I find is a good range to be able to increase the quality of your image. So if we wanted to turn on facial recognition, first we need to go to that actual tab. I'm gonna go ahead and clear it by now so we can say if we didn't have it already set up. So you'll see here under face recognition, there's a few different tabs. The first one is detection. The next one is recognition, and the third one is face database. So we discussed a little bit about what face detection going to do for you? Well, face detection is going to show you the faces that were detected, like in the demo video I showed you earlier. Now, once we go through and set this up, we'll show you the examples of what we get as a result. So detection, to set up face detection is as easy as selecting the enable detection by IP camera. By default, it's going to be on the whole screen. We can hit clear And if we know that there's a certain area that I want to detect faces in, I just draw my box on that screen, on the area right there. So that's going to give me the area, the only area it's going to detect faces in. Now the algorithm's always going to be running, detecting everywhere else, but all I'm going to save is right here, but I'm not going to detect faces into the recorder that are outside of this box. So we've enabled detection by IP camera. We've drawn the box. So there's a few different options here. So we have a schedule. Schedule is anything from 24/7. Most of the time on face detection, we're not going to have a whole lot of outputs happen. It's going to be more about just we're detecting faces. So that way, when we see or when we demo this in a minute, it's easy to scroll through people that were in there instead of having to look at a timeline, stop at a face, zoom in. We're able to see face, 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 face. So on a schedule, I usually run that on a 24/7. If you wanted to do a custom schedule, you would go to manage. So if I wanted to have it only detect at nighttime or trigger based off of nighttime, I can come in here and do a custom schedule. Keep in mind, this is 12 a.m. This is also 12 a.m. into the morning. So I had to do 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. I start here, stop, start here, stop. And then it'll display here that 10 p.m. to 12 a.m., 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. is a time that the schedule is going to be running, looking for face detection. So on this one, I keep it on 24/7. The duration of the event is the duration until the next event can happen. Snapshot interval, how often do I take a snapshot once that duration or to the next duration event, and how many snapshots of this event am I going to take? So I'm going to, every 5 seconds, I'm going to have a new event occur, and I'm only going to take a snapshot every 30 seconds and one snapshot. So that gives me basically one snapshot every 5 seconds for everybody walking in. If you have more people coming in, you can kind of tailor that to how you need it. I usually keep it on the default settings and you're just fine. So you'll see here we have face range. If you hit the display range box, this is going to bring up two green images. The smaller green image represent the minimum size of a face. The max is the maximum. So, you don't have to get real close. I mean, it's as long as the face is no bigger than your max, you're fine. This is going to, if somebody walked through with a picture and it had a face on it and it was a small, very small, it would pick up that face as a face. So if we need to change that, you have somebody stand there and you just make sure that, a face is within 5% of the screen and no bigger than 15. And this would only change if the camera is mounted low and somebody might walk right up to it or right in front of it and look at it. But obviously it's going to be based off of our detection area. So I know no face is going to be smaller than this or bigger than this in this area. So we would simply apply that. And then we're going to get in a trigger mode. So remember, this trigger mode is based off of detection. So when we detect a face in that range during the schedule we set, we've got a few options here. Voice prompt. You can add a voice prompt through the digital deterrent menu to the recorder, that it would play a voice prompt on the recorder. But under trigger general, you see that you can take a snapshot to the recorder, and the snapshot is going to be the image of what occurred, and then another snapshot of the face. If you want to put an SD card in the camera, you can also put an SD card in the camera, select advanced, and select original or target picture to be able to save these target snapshots to that SD card as a backup. You can do a push notification that whoever has the app, it will do a push notification to the app that this event occurred. You can do a buzzer to the recorder. If you're programming this and you want to test it, the buzzer to the recorder is a really good one. You can set it up, select the buzzer, go trigger it. If you hear the buzzer, you know that the analytic event occurred. Or if you had an instance to where we had individuals in a database that were thieves and you didn't want them to be notified, you could have the buzzer sound so that way the employees knew if they heard that buzzer go off that there's somebody that walked in that's on the thief list. We can do a pop-up video. The pop-up video is going to be in the demo from the website that showed the individual popping up. That was a stranger. Then we can also do email notification. Keep in mind, if we're doing the email notification, that we need to set up the SMTP server information in the recorder. That's done under network. If you need more details on that, reach out. Also, you'll see we have a record feature, which is going to start recording. Now, specifically, it's going to record that camera because it's going to start treating what was recording on continuous recording now as an AI event. So there's a different type of recording configuration. So whatever the event recording configurations will be. But if we wanted to manually trigger another camera to record based off this event, we could do so by grabbing that camera and then moving it over. Now, where some of the magic happens, more on the recognition and database on the recognition side is we can trigger any alarm outs. So let's say, for instance, and this system here has alarm output 1 tied to the DMP alarm system. It has alarm output 2 tied to the DMP alarm system. Zone 1 of the DMP alarm system is programmed as a silent alarm. Zone 2 is programmed to just trip the internal and exterior siren. So I've named these 2 triggers, which you can address them under the alarm out feature. So I've addressed these 2 triggers here so that if I worked with them, if this was an interior camera and I was doing the nighttime settings, I could come in and say, okay, if that happens, I want to trigger the alarm system, and I'll just drop it over and I would apply that. And I'm not going to do that because the schedule's all the time and it would trigger the alarm. But I have a lot of options on what I want to do from the configure the output. You can also set presets to happen based off this event happening. I use a lot of intrusion detection on if we have, say you have a square 80,000 square foot warehouse, we have PTZs around the corners. I have 2 cameras on each side of the warehouse crossing, looking at it. Well, that's going to give me, 4, 8, 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, we'll say 8 cameras. I have the capabilities of setting intrusion zones, and when that zone gets triggered by a human or a motor vehicle during a schedule, if it's anytime, I can then have a PTZ preset, which a preset, each PTZ would have 1, 2, 3, 4 presets programmed for what each camera sees. So when that camera gets tripped, it could then tell that PTZ to pan over to that zone and then start doing smart tracking. So we have a lot of configurations that are very easily set up based off of each analytic. So this is going to be, we would apply that. That's going to be the face detection. So what does that look like? If we go to our intelligent analysis tab, you'll see here that we have a few different things. We have face. Under the face tab, we have all events, successful recognition, stranger. We can search based off events that happen. So all the face tags that I got when I hit search, or I can search based off of a face. And if I'm searching based off of a face, then I would go through and either A, look in my existing database, or B, go through and look at the snapshot gallery. And that's going to be what faces that I've gotten today that I can search for. So if we're searching, so we'll go ahead and if we're searching by face, we'll say that an individual that was on our thief list is easily recognizable, so we use him. So we can select an individual that if I'd already added him to the database as a thief, he wasn't in there today. So let's customize. First, let's go and look for the week. So we're going to select week. And remember here, we got this threshold that we can set. Let's customize it a little bit more and go back for the past month. $525. Okay. So you'll see here that if we search for this individual, and I searched for a day, didn't find things, searched for a week, didn't find things. So I went ahead and searched for the past month. And you'll see that this individual is starting to pull up now. And it's showing me the accuracy of the read 76, 79, 75, 77, 78, 100, 81%. And if I select into these individual selections, it's going to tell me, here's my target picture that I added him to the database. And here's the picture that the camera took. Then I have a few options from here where I can search based off this face, which I'm already doing. But you do have the capabilities. If we were looking at the daily tags, if I found somebody, I could then search based off the face of any of all the tags I got today. If I go into playback, it'll send me to play a little clip of that individual and when it tagged that face. But like I said, if that's not the one I'm looking for, I can go to each one and do the same thing. What's also unique is that, so we're looking at a picture and a snap. I can do a picture and a match. I can do the original image of the video that he was in there. I can do a list of stolen. So you'll notice that I took notes when I added him to the database of what day. So when it pops him up on that screen, that's what they're going to see is stolen 526 in that text box. So another unique feature is we can come in and select the track feature, and you'll see here that we come in and we can edit the map, and we can move the cameras around where they might be. We can add more cameras to the we unedit the map, but I want to show you here, we can hit play. It's showing me where each tag, 2, 1, 4 tags on each camera. So if I hit the play button, you'll notice that it's going to start sequentially putting together where this individual was based off of time frames and the camera stamps. So these are all the low times that he was in my building. So you can see how, if we have a single camera with facial recognition turned on in a location, a gas station, and it's just the front camera, and if somebody comes in, we catch somebody stealing, we're then able to come in and say, okay, we searched based off of a face. Now if we come back in and we go to the day and we want to search by so we're going to come back in, do an event search. Let's see if I might not have had facial rec. Okay. But if we come back in and do an event search, you'll notice that I have all the different tags of everybody that was there during the time period that I searched for. And from here, we can take individuals that aren't in the system and then register them into the database. So I've got a little bit of a network lag here. Let me let this finish loading. All right. So once we can see throughout the day which individuals were there, we can see them in a list. We can separate it by camera. But once we have an individual there, we can then register them into, this is going to move more into the facial recognition aspect. We can now take these individuals from detection to adding them into a database of employees, whether that's alarm system company, thieves, whatever group we want to create. Or we can add a group and say patrons. So something to keep in mind, how I discussed with you, if you saw, I'm going to hit this again so you can see what popped up. Effective size is 128 by 128, equivalent to 1920 by 1080, which is 1080p. So this is how, when I discussed earlier, that not all detection photos are going to be able to be recognizable as far as being used, as they're not a good enough photo to add that individual to the database. If you want to search, so when we were doing this search, if you come over to this more button, when we're doing the search, we can select on which cameras that we want to be able to do the facial recognition on. Let's see, we can take these two, but also we have this identify registrable snap pictures. If we select that, it'll give us a little green icon on the camera, on the ones that we're able to search. You'll see here and like we said, just because a individual so you'll notice here that this didn't pop up on the search of the threshold of the individual, and if I can tell you why, was because the percentage of the picture, there we go, 75%. So what we're able to do is very easily start seeing who's in our place with the face detection, and then we can change that into recognition. Now, getting back to the recognition, we got a question here. So text messages are not able to be set up as an alert option. You are able to get push notifications through the app that have the as I get into this back into the face recognition tab, I'll show you that we can attach a text box. So let's get back into the camera we were working with. We've already turned on facial detection. I'll hop into recognition to answer your question, but you have this text prompt right here that can be sent out attached with the event. So before we get started on face recognition, it's important to understand that how we see individuals in for recognition. And you'll see that there's an enable feature for successful recognitions and also strangers. So what we're doing is we're moving from detection to recognition. So what we're going to look for is successful recognitions. Successful recognitions are anybody that is in our face database. It doesn't matter what group they're in, and we'll create a group here in a second, but anybody that's in the database. Anybody that is not in a database is a stranger. So we're going to move from, we're still going to have some detections. Now, we might have some recognitions of strangers that meet the criteria for recognizing, but it's going to start seeing these people different. It's going to start seeing them in a group of strangers, but then we can start adding these strangers to groups if we choose so as they come in. So that's a little bit of background as far as how we pull from the database, but let's hop down the database here. So we select face database, and I've already got some databases included here: employees, cleaner employees, thieves, and patrons. So you'll see here that we can add groups. If we select down here to go to add group, we'll do loyal customers. And so I'll tell you, like this group would be if I have somebody that's come in 10, 15, 20 times a month and shop with us, I'm going to add them to the group. That way, every time they come in, it's going to pop up a message box and say they're part of the loyal message or the loyal customer. You know, anybody's ever curious how when you walk in a casino, if you're a high roller, if you're, you know, you visit it quite a bit, somebody sitting there comes up to you and talks to you. A lot of this stuff is facial recognition. They see you coming before you. It's the old saying, the old casino saw you coming before you got there, and they literally are. But it's ways like this that we can start recognizing people on a good and bad level of when they're in our premise. So we saw how we added a group. Once we added a group, you'll see there's a few different things. We can select the edit button just to be able to enable or disable that group. Also be able to rename that group. Delete would simply delete it. If we expand and collapse, I'm going to expand and collapse this one. So then you'll see here that we have an empty screen with nobody in there. If we want to add somebody, we're going to go to add. So we can do a few different things here. We would manually enter it. Let's go to select face. And I have the capabilities of either external faces. I can import files in. That if I want to do a mass upload of faces or personal information description. For this purpose, I'm going to look for just today. We'll search, and you'll see the green tags are the ones that are recognizable in the system. So I can grab somebody. I think Morgan might already be in the system here, but let's see what happens. Employees. Entry, add failure, so that picture was not an effective size. But we can add individuals this way if we want to keep selecting. So what that meant was that it's pulling that image from one of my other cameras that was not set up for facial recognition and set up for facial detection. So we would need to find a face that would be that is able to be added to the system. And to do that, to make it a little bit easier, what I would want to do is select a face, and then actually instead of all the cameras here, I'd want to select a camera that I know that I had facial recognition set up on. Oops. And depending on, we just now turned it on. I don't think we've had anybody come through. Let's try one more. Is it? There we go. entry totals. Both of these are employees, and I'm wondering if I'm adding. So we're not going to get hung up on this. And it's also important to recognize that. So when we're doing facial recognition on a site to be able to do exactly what I'm trying to do now, is that we don't want detection on other cameras turned on. We only want the recognition aspect to be on. So back to the groups, we can see the different people in the groups, individuals here that we've already added to those groups. We can select, add, modify, very simple. Now getting back into the recognition aspect, face recognition. Back to that camera, face recognition, and the reason why we've had it turned on detection, just so you know why that image did not come through when I just tried to add it, was because the only thing we had turned on was the recognition, and I'm sorry, the detection, and we had not set up a group yet. The only group that we were seeing here, and I'll explain this, was employees and thieves. So we talked about we have to first enable successful recognition and then also enable a stranger. So then we're going to come down, and under parameter settings, you'll see here that we have successful recognition, and then we also have strangers. So these are the two groups, or these are the groups that you're going to start working with. So the first group under successful recognition. So first we're going to go to more, and we're going to select the group that we want to be able to work with. So if I was looking for the thieves, so if we go to thieves, now even though it's a negative association with the word thieves, they're still in a group that once they're in that group, I can then successfully recognize them. So we're going to look for anybody in a thief group that is in the thief database. We're going to do it 24/7. And if we want the text prompt, it's going to be thief on site or thief entered business, call police. You know, whatever the need that you want to type in, anything can be typed there. And then we've got a few options from there. Now, it's important to note that we're obviously going to have, because I'm going to go ahead and keep moving on. You have a few options. If we recognize anybody in this thief database that we've set up, you can, based off of our triggers, you can enable alarm output pulse. So when we trigger that alarm output, if it is going to a gate controller, anything that requires an alarm output pulse, you can select this, and when we trigger our alarm output, it will turn it, instead of just a normally closed, normally open relay, into a alarm output pulse. So from there, we can do a push notification to the app that we got the thief on site, and it's going to have the picture of him, the text prompt. We can have a buzzer to the recorder, a pop-up video, email once you set up the SMTP server, or the pop-up message box we saw in the demo from the website earlier. We can also have that camera. It's obviously going to start recording as an event, or any other camera record as an event based off of this event, or we can configure the alarm output. So if this was something that we wanted a silent alarm to go off in the location, we could always trigger that alarm system trigger. We could trigger a light based off of using a relay and a light pole. So the options of what you can do are pretty endless as far as your alarm output. So we would simply apply that. And so now what we've done is, anytime if we go to the live view, when somebody walks through that door, if anybody in the thief group walks through and it recognizes them, it's going to do what we've done here. So it's going to send the push notification out as all selected. Now, let's say that I had another group. So I'm going to come over here and hit this plus sign, and you'll see that I get another successful recognition group. So on this group, let's say that I wanted loyal customers. So I want it 24/7. And now I could create a schedule that was just during business hours. So that way, you know, if I had something programmed to where if anybody was there after hours to trigger the alarm, I'm not going to have two people in a group that's going to allow them access. So I could do a schedule, say just for this purpose, 24/7. Again, if I wanted a custom schedule, I can come on here and do, I've got one here for office hours already done. So I'm going to select the office hours. So if any patrons, any of the loyal patrons or customers come into my building during office hours, I'm going to text prompt loyal customer on site. That way we can thank them for their continual business. Then we can come here and select what notifications we want, whether that's a buzzer, pop-up video to the recorder, pop-up message box of this text prompt here, or we could trigger a alarm output that might go to a light. And then we would just simply hit apply. So what I've done is I've created 2 successful recognition groups, and I can keep creating them by hitting the plus and minus sign. So we talked about too that strangers, anybody that's not in a group. So the only time I'm going to recognize anybody is if a thief comes on site or if a loyal customer comes on site. So I could also create another group of, so let's say I wanted to know when my employees got to work. I could also come in here and do another one for more. I could do employees, put my employees in the database, schedule 24/7. You know, I don't really want to, if I want to say employee on site, I don't care. For me, I don't want to get a text of this. I just want to be able to search based off of one of their face and see when they came and went. So for me, I'm not going to have anything text. I'm not going to do a push notification. I'm simply just going to let it apply that as an event. So if I went to search under intelligent analytics, under successful recognitions, I can search for the group of employees. So back to stranger, we've got strangers enabled. So remember, anybody that's not in a group now is going to start registering as a stranger. So if we select the stranger tab, we come over to the schedule. So when are we looking for schedule? Strangers 24/7 text prompt. You know, I see quite a bit. I like to put stranger in there or stranger register. That way I know that if I get a message popped up, stranger register, I either need to look at the camera to see who's there. And then I can address that, or I can register them into a database or just let it go. So if you want to get a push notification or email, pop-up video or pop-up message box, if it's somewhere that you want to be able to grant access, even though somebody might not have the credentials to automatically grant access, I want to be able to get a notification saying they're there at that gate, so I can pull my phone up, use that O2 TML or use one of our cameras with a mic and speaker and talk down to them and find out what they're doing there, take the phone out, and then trigger that output that's labeled, you know, door release and let them in. So that's the difference between stranger and successful recognition. So let me apply that. And now we're going to start actually recognizing what individuals came in the site. So let's see if I can hop back over here. We'll take a few questions real quick. All right. Triggering the alarm for the siren only, or does this send an alarm signal to the monitoring station as a zone that was tripped? So this is going to be on the alarm panel side and how that specific alarm panel is programmed. And I know like DMP offers some different options, alarm.com, Honeywell, a lot of yours. So it's going to be based off how you can program a zone and what happens on that alarm panel. What the recorder has the option to do is be able to change between a normally open or normally closed output, and also send an alarm output pulse. Now, common practice is that you could put, if you didn't want to utilize the alarm system, still wanted to have a strobe or siren or any type of peripheral that could be triggered based off of the system, is you could use something like a TTL relay, and then simply put a strobe or siren out in the field to where it could trigger its own and not even use the alarm system if that alarm system is not able to program a zone like you want it. As far as does this send an alarm signal to the monitoring station as a zone that was tripped? So I have worked with a few different companies on setting up, you know, this, we utilize facial recognition and turning on this on the interior. And if it trips, if we detect a face or even a human body during a certain time schedule when that business is closed, it will fire the alarm output on the recorder or camera that can then go to the alarm panel, and that can be treated as its own zone to basically be, it's like a motion detector running AI that's doing the triggering for the alarm system. When the AI facial camera is tied to the alarm system. I think we got your question there. You can tell me if it's not answered. To confirm, is it good practice to register all on-site employees, faces recognition? Did you say not to set up other analytics while facial recognition is running? So it is important to note that you can only run one analytic at a time. So facial recognition is running, it's going to be what is running. But what I'm recommending is that, now you'll notice, so if I can keep detection and recognition turned on, it's the same. I'm going to recommend only running recognition and having other cameras. You just have to remember that when you're searching, that you need to make sure that you select the cameras that you're running facial recognition on. And if you want to be able to register employees, or you can have them come up, look at the camera. The reason I showed you the O2 TML on the website earlier, if I'm utilizing facial recognition, this is my go-to camera here, because I have to come up. I'm gonna pull up a recorder here and show you live what this interaction looks like. So you saw some of the facial recognition grabs of the other cameras, where we had facial grabs from anywhere from 5 to 15, 20 feet out. And once we start getting in that range, we move from a recognition area outside of recognition to a more of a detection feature. So here's two O2 TMLs, one inside the garage, one outside the garage. The one outside the garage ties to the garage door opener. And all I'm doing is running 2 wires from the alarm output. I changed the, so you'll notice if I go into oops, not this. So under settings, garage doors, that's gonna work off a normally closed relay. So if I come into settings, on event, I spoke earlier right here under alarm out, which is the first screen, how we can address our triggers on our outputs on both the recorder level, which are your local outputs, and then also so the O2 TML each has 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I've got this one as gate relay. It's actually garage door relay. I had it tied to a gate, garage door relay. But I'm able to change the delay on this too. And then also I can add a custom schedule for when that's able to open. So if I didn't want anybody to open my garage door from, 10 p.m. to we'll say 6 a.m. to keep the kids from sneaking in and out, I can also create a custom schedule. Now, from the recorder, I can come over here and change to a normally open, normally closed. If I want to change the camera directly from a normally open, normally closed, I have to go directly into the camera. And to do that, you'll see that I'm on the local network here. I'm going to go to settings. I'm going to go to camera. And you'll notice that under the settings, I have these gear icons. So if I hit the gear icon, it's going to take me directly into the camera. You don't have to change the password. 1, 2, 3, 4 is the default password. But I can get into the configuration of that. And this particular HTML I talked about, it's got access control. It utilizes facial recognition. I can turn mass detection off. But you'll see here the alarm inputs and outputs. I can change that to whether alarm linkage, manual operation, door release to normally closed instead of normally open. So that's how we access the camera directly. If we need to change how the output on the camera is gonna configure. But getting back in this O2 TML, I'll show you why I highly recommend this for access control. Also, if we're going to utilize a lot of employees and if I had 20, 30, 40 employees that I need to use facial recognition on, or if it was a church, or I need to add a lot of people to the database, I'm 100% going to throw an O2 TML on the job. And then that way, when I need to register people, I just scan them through the O2 TML. So if I go into intelligent analytics here, I'll go to face. So we'll just go to, I know that I'm going to have successful recognitions here because you'll see here, I haven't added my wife to the database. So she tried to scan in and it obviously didn't open the garage door because she's not in my database yet. But you'll notice here, if I go to register, I'll save her as wifey, female, group, homeowners. Okay, save successfully. Because look at this face picture. The face is taking up probably roughly 50% of the screen. It's allowing me to be able to have a beautiful image to be able to use recognition on to add that to the database. Now, if I go to playback, this is what I'm going to see for, and she's trying to figure out why it's not working. So there, now it'll work for her. So, but what I'm able to do is, so these are all events. Now, if I search for, we'll say the week based off of all events, it's going to show me myself, my son, my nephew when we log on, whenever we're scanning in here. And again, you can see if we do that, we can go to playback. But what you're able to see is based off the pre-record and post-record is if I'm tying this to a system, and especially if I'm integrating this with access control, there's no better camera angle than coming to a door right at it to be able to scan in. So if I want to see successful recognitions for the week, it's going to start showing me all of the successful recognitions for the day. You'll see here that I've got my daughter in there, and obviously that day was 619 that it's looking for. So that O2 TML is going to give you a beautiful image, a great scan, or what we need to keep in mind of is it's not so much the O2 TML, it's because of where the camera is mounted. So, the closer you get these cameras to the doors, closer you can get them to the face, if it's looking right at the door jamb, looking straight down, where they can come up and look into it, you're going to get the same result for a camera. The O2 TML is a great product. It's priced right now. So, definitely highly recommend it. You can also come in here and, like we're saying, search, add people to the database, see if we have any questions here. We can still utilize the tracking features. Everything I showed you earlier. You'll see here what it takes. There we go. Scan the face. So unique product, a lot of opportunity. Our facial recognition also ties in with our VMS platform. For those that aren't really familiar with the VMS platform, I guess I'm going to spend the next few minutes here seeing if we have what questions we have. So relay can trip just a siren. So that's correct. If you used a relay off of one of our outputs, you could have a powered siren locally that you don't need an alarm system. It's just a matter of setting up the peripherals. For entrance, interior cameras, Face ID is better, and outdoor cameras and others set up with different analytics. I would agree 100% on this. Especially for outdoor, you're able to set up different intrusion zones. And, we showed it. That's more, I'm going to stick to facial recognition. I am going to give you in the last few minutes here some references of where you can see how to set up the other analytics in our trainings. Let's see here. And there's nothing to keep you from running facial recognition outdoor. It's just a matter of making sure that you follow those best install practices that we have on the website. And as long as you're following the face detection and face recognition diagrams, and the people are entering this area, night and day, as long as we have adequate lighting, you're still going to be able to get what you need, whether that's indoor or outdoor. So actually the O2 TML is actually indoor and outdoor rated. You want to make sure that you use all the seals that come with it. Where's the camera mounted on the exterior side of the front door? Is it waterproof? Yes, if I were to pull that back up, you'll see here that everything here is encased, and it is, I don't want to say waterproof. It is indoor and outdoor rated, and the IP rating on that, I could probably look up in the spec sheets. Let's see. So IP66 is going to be the rating on it, but it is indoor and outdoor rated. You will need to use the seals on it. And all the wires come in from the bottom, which is going to be, your trigger wire, your network wire, and then your 12-volt power. And then they come with a little mounting plate that goes on the back. Your camera is located, there's two cameras here, and then you have a facial scan, you have a temperature thermal reader up top. You have a light that you can turn on and off. It can also auto turn on and off when it detects a face. You can also do an upgrade to this and make it a touchscreen. So a lot of features. Here's the device here. And like I said, I can tell you this is probably one of the cheapest facial scanners you'll find on the market right now. We're running a deal on them. I think they're around $200. Reach out to your dealer or reach out to us for special pricing on that. I think we still have couple hundred in stock. So, two-way audio is great. Slap this puppy on a gate. A lot of options there. So let's see if we have any more questions. We don't. So I'm going to stay on here for the next 3 minutes. If anybody else has any more questions, we got another one coming in here. Any facial camera, typically, what is the distance it can identify a face or facial recognition? If it's not about the distance, it's about the resolution. And so you need a 2 megapixel, a 1080p image for the facial recognition to be able to add that to a database. Now, when we're searching, so if I were to pull up the same site we were in here, when I'm searching, I can do 2 different things. I should have showed you earlier. That was a good question. So if I get back into settings, AI and event, face recognition. Let's get to the camera I was working with. Back into recognition. So I forgot, if you see this parameter settings here, so if we select that, it's going to give me the percentage that it needs to match. So, when I was doing things with employees, if I was getting employees access, or like I was showing that O2 TML, I was opening gates and opening garage doors, opening doors. I want employees, or I can set that threshold to be 90%. And I can do the same thing for cameras too, not just the O2 TML. Or if I wanted thieves, I wanted it to be like a 50% threshold. That way, if they wear a hoodie or were below the original threshold, I can then change those. So that's what that's going to do, is allow you to either detect more or less of what's not actually registrable. So that's how we adjust our parameter settings. But if we were looking for events, now if I want to go back into intelligent analytics and I want to say successful recognitions, we'll see if we've got any today. So I've got one there of Brad for an employee here. What you can also do is, let's go to all events, search for the day. Oops. If I want to search by face, I would hit the plus sign. This is going to need to load up before it allows me to. So if I go to I'm going to let this load up and then I'll go to that screen. So once we are searching, so if I wanted to use the snapshot gallery, or if I just, for simplicity's sake, if I want to search for an individual, you'll notice here that I have the capabilities of lowering the percentage of what I'm searching for here. And you'll notice that now I've detected him on a lower threshold. And so this is where I'm going to start seeing images that were mainly done through the detection feature. And because it's detecting a face, even though it wasn't, what I needed to be able to be recognizable. But I'm still able to use that in when I'm searching, whether that was on detection or recognition. So back to the original point, it's just a matter of when I'm searching, it is important to be able to select which cameras I'm working on that are going to give me an image that I can add to the database if that's what I'm looking for. Let's see here. So the NRE is not NDA compliant. Great question. And the NRE is what's running the facial recognition. Now, the cameras are NDA compliant, and the cameras are the ones that are running the analytics. so you can still do a lot of our analytics from the camera, but as far as database information, you need the NRE recorder to run the facial recognition. Great question. Yeah, so we carry quite a few 8-megapixel cameras, or 8 megapixels are our threshold, as high as we're at right now. We will have some 16-megapixel stuff being released on the future. It's on the roadmap. But currently, yes, 8 megapixels are a match. And if we were to go into the website, solutions, advanced analytics, select the recognition tab, you can see here that the camera options, I believe, we have the 08 FB MSN, which is 4 2-megapixel images stitched together to make an 8-megapixel image. You know, and I might stand corrected. Yes, we have the 08 B8, the 08 FB1. And then the 08 T9, 08 T9M. And then there's quite a few lines of the intensifier cameras. All right, well, everybody, I appreciate you hopping on today. It's 5:03. We stayed on a little bit later. This is going to conclude our facial recognition webinar. And again, Benjamin, thank you. So if anybody has any questions, I'll hop on. I'll stay on for a few more minutes to answer them. We appreciate your support today, and we'll see you next week.